They do real numbers.
With just Ubereats, we're probably doing about 100 deliveries a day.
Because of that, we have to create more storage space.
Yeah, so we took out the seats and we put these refrigerators in.
The first day that Uber Eats went live in this market, the tablet was ringing and buzzing.
When you're operating a restaurant, the most common thing you see on the menu is like delivery radius like 2.5 miles, right? So with Uber, they're like, yeah, West LA, downtown LA. I'm like, holy crap, that's a lot of people.
People will see you that have never heard about you on the Uber Eats platform. Might see something in a photo or might see something in the menu that grabs your eye and they try it, and if they like it, you now have a customer for life.
I couldn't ask for a more trustworthy partner. They got the logistics game on lock because we all use Ubers to get everywhere in the world now.
You look at the app, you scroll through some nice pictures, you place your order, and all through from the time you think, all the way through the process till the food's delivered, there's a lot of transparency around it, which I think consumers like.
When I first did this, all I cared about was that Uber Eats understood logistics, but it's clear as the relationship has progressed that Uber Eats cares about restaurants. They allow me to be artistic and in a way that can further the bottom line.
It's very obvious that the team at Uber cares just as much about how food is arriving to the guests as we do. They provide you with a lot of feedback and a lot of autonomy to make change.
If you were a restaurant and you were thinking about getting on Uber Eats, I would tell you, yes, just smart.
I'd say go for it and watch what happens. Watch your business grow.
Okay, strap in. Please join me in welcoming the head of Uber Everything, Jason Droege. Great to have you here. We are very excited for this conversation, and we're really anxious to learn from you how you view this wonderful industry of ours, how you can look at the $786 billion throughput that we have in our industry and think about how we can make that bigger. How can we grow? Obviously, some controversial elements, which we'll get to as we start to talk, but you have turned transportation just completely upside down, and now you're made the decision to move from moving people to moving food. And you've been the architect of that. This is the first time I think you've really spoken publicly in a setting like this about the work that you're doing, and we're thrilled that you're here with us. But could you talk to us a little bit about that process, those decisions, and kind of where you're headed with all of this?
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, honored to be here. It's exciting to have the opportunity to talk to all of you and answer some questions about what we're doing. So I think in terms of how we think about the industry, I think it might be useful to talk about kind of what we've done at Uber so far. So Uber is almost 6 years old. We're now in 400 cities around the world, and we have over 1 million active drivers. We do about 5 million trips per day, and we've done 1 billion trips so far. Relevant to this audience, we cover 75% of the U.S. with drivers. So, 3/4 of the time, unless you're in a very rural area, you're going to be within a few minutes of an Uber. We have 14 live Uber Eats cities, and so I think we've done, we've invested very heavily in creating a logistics fabric, a logistics network, if you will, that can do more than people transport. So when you think about the journey from people transportation to here, and in terms of the impact that we can potentially make, I think it starts with that. And so if you look at how we got here, one of the major things that happened whenever I joined was the company started looking at what else can we do with this vast network of drivers and the efficiencies that brings to potentially benefit other industries. And that's something no other company is really been positioned to do, right? There's never been a company, in the history of the world where you've had a driver ready to do a job at a few minutes' notice with such penetration. And so we said, well, if Uber can bring you a car in a few minutes, like what are the other benefits of that sort of logistics network, if you will? So we sort of started there, and then we combined that with our principle of, everything we do should benefit the city. It should celebrate the cities. It should also enable people to engage with the best of their city in a more frictionless way. So Uber today, you get a ride, and now you go out and do things. You don't have to deal with parking, you don't have to deal with valets, you don't have to deal with a lot of the friction that comes with moving around dense cities. But in a city like Chicago, or New York, or San Francisco, or wherever we're from, there's all kinds of things that we would do if there was less friction to do it. And so when you think about what makes a city, it's not only going to things, but it's the things that can come to you. And food is a very, very big thing that makes a city unique. And to be able to connect with that flavor and to be able to connect with all of the creators in that city creating awesome food was a problem that we got really, really passionate about. So the journey here and the benefit of Uber is we started with sort of logistical prowess, if you will, and that continues to get better and better as we add more and more drivers on the road. In fact, the 1 million driver number here is actually much higher even since we created this. So the market is growing. We've done 1 billion trips to date, but at 5 million a day, we're going to do billions more over the next year. So that's going to continue to get more and more refined. And so bringing that to the problem of connecting people with the food that they want, I think has a lot of power. In fact, for me personally, I live in San Francisco, and there is this restaurant in San Francisco called Pica Pica Arepas. It's this Venezuelan restaurant. It's in the Mission. I live on the north side of the city. If you know San Francisco, it's very hard to get around. It's 2.5, 3 miles away. Typically, I wouldn't have ever gone through the effort of driving down there and parking to get this food. In fact, I've never even been to the restaurant, but it's in the Ubereats app. And so I decided to give it a try because someone had recommended to me. It was, like the photography looks good, it was different. And arepas are like this Venezuelan sandwich. And I wasn't sure if I was gonna like it, but the fact that I could get it delivered to me in 30 minutes, which is about the delivery time from the Mission to where I am, was compelling enough for me to give it a try. And so I tried it, and now I order from there regularly. And so it allowed me to get something from a part of the city that I typically wouldn't have otherwise gone to. And I wasn't bounded by what was sort of physically close to me, walking distance, and I could get it so quickly that it would take almost as much time for me to get it myself. And the reason why I got it in 30 minutes is because, by the way, I got it at 6:30 at night. And so if you know how these delivery networks work, typically what happens is at 6:30 at night, the delivery times go way up because everyone's really busy. And one of the huge benefits of the Uber network is that because drivers are doing food delivery and product delivery jobs and also moving people during really busy times of the night, you have much less volatility, if you will, with delivery time. So at 6:30, I got it in 30 minutes. Our nationwide average is 34 minutes. So across all cities, all geographies. To my knowledge, that's unprecedented. And especially to have it be so consistent even at the busy times, I think that's really powerful. It can create a different experience with these restaurants that are on the platform, that are making food, and plug into our logistics network and our app to bring it to you quickly. So that's sort of how I sort of frame the thinking in the business.
So some of the things that you're well aware of, and the video showed a number of restaurateurs who are extremely pleased with their affiliation and their business is growing. There is some trepidation, as you know, in the industry just about the integrity, the brand integrity of the product, the delivery, the degradation perhaps of the proper temperature and all those kinds of things. You've paid a lot of attention to that. Can you talk about your point of view about that and how to perhaps help the community that is challenged or has concerns about that to partner with you to make sure that their brand of their restaurant, the integrity of their food, isn't compromised in this delivery process?
Yeah, absolutely. That's completely concerning. I mean, all of us have had food delivery experiences where the food has arrived and it's not been in the condition that it was probably made. Maybe graded on a curve because we just assume delivery is not going to be that great because that's kind of been the state of the world for a very long time. And so while on the surface, Uber Eats, you would say, well, it's a food delivery service. And aren't there other food delivery services like this? But I think there's some fundamental differences between what we're doing and where we're starting from than what's existed previously. So one of those differences is we put restaurants first, and how that breaks down is every restaurant that's on Uber Eats has agreed to be on Uber Eats. Every menu for every restaurant is created in partnership with the restaurant. So for example, some restaurants might want to put everything on because they want to give the most selection possible. Other restaurants might say, well, these meals take 6 minutes to create, and this other meal here takes 40 minutes to create because it's a steak. So I don't want to have an experience for my customers. One, I don't feel like it will represent my brand well to have a steak traveling, and being eaten at home. So, and sort of on the flip side, I also don't want my customer waiting an hour to an hour and a half to get their food. And so giving the control to the restaurants and working with restaurants on how the platform works, I think is a really important differentiating feature. Second, whenever we build new products, we do it in conjunction with restaurant partners. At the end of the day, we're a service provider, right? And so as a service provider, we want to make sure that we're providing the right tools to restaurants so that they can increase their business on our system, or run their business better, or provide them data that can help them make business decisions. And so because we see ourselves as a service provider, and because we're a marketplace where we have restaurants and drivers and eaters, we have to do things to make sure that all sides are healthy and happy. And I don't think that the world has thought about the problem in this way before. So we're different in that way. The other way that I touched upon is sort of breaking down that delivery time, and I'll come back to it because it's a pretty important and differentiating part of Uber Eats. Of that 34 minutes, 20 minutes is food prep. So when you talk about food quality, the time from the grill to the eater is a very important time difference, right? When you're making food 30 feet away and delivering it in 30 seconds from the time it's up, that's very different than making it and having it consume 30 minutes to an hour later. So working on getting that time further and further down. So if just doing the simple math, it's 14 minutes is the average time globally, actually, because we're in Melbourne, Paris, and Toronto, from when we get the food off the grill, or when it's handed to us from the restaurant, to the time the consumer gets it. So from a food integrity standpoint, I think that really helps. And then to go further on that point, we work with restaurants to figure out how far their food should be delivered. Some restaurants might say, well, this is a cold salad, and I want to reach as many customers as possible, so let's deliver it as far as we can do so economically. And we'll work with them on exactly that problem. Or they might say, well, this might not hold up that well. I only want to deliver my food, within a half a mile, 3/4 of a mile. So I want to really tighten that up. We also work with them on packaging to the extent that they want the help. We have teams in cities to meet with restaurants in person. We have a number of situations that have occurred since we've launched the product where we've gone to a restaurant who maybe had a problem with maybe us, or they want to work through a problem together, and the person's actually showed up at the restaurant, which I think is a sign of our investment in building positive relationships here. We actually had another example in Toronto, which was one of our first markets for this product. So this is David from Taco Bell. So he's in LA. He runs a restaurant in LA. I'll tell a story really quickly, and then I have a great story about Toronto. He was getting reasonable demand on Uber Eats, and he called us up and said, "Hey, I'd like to do more. How do I increase my business with you?" And so we sent someone down there. We talked to him about the things, the changes he could potentially make to sort of increase his business. So we made a few tweaks. I won't go into all the details. And within 2 days, he had doubled his business on Uber Eats. Because there's just, restaurant owners come from this expertise of making food and hospitality and making that experience amazing. Uber is lucky enough to have this network of drivers and thousands of engineers to build technology. And if we join in partnership, I think something really powerful can be created. But we have to do that with great intent, right? We can't just say it. We actually have to do it. We have to invest in it. We have to put people on the ground. We have to understand the details. We have to understand, technology people communicate one way, restaurant owners might communicate another way. Like, how do we make sure we're on the same page? So we're investing in that. I mean, we can always get better because all of this stuff is relatively new, but I think those are some of the things that we do to help restaurant owners out. Actually, can we go to the next slide? Yeah. So the Toronto story. This is like in my dreams when we were creating Ubereats and figuring out like what are the hard problems we can solve. Like what are the things that exist in the world that technology can help get a bridge. And Cowson Road, if anyone's from Toronto, this is an amazing restaurant there. It's actually, it used to be about a block from the Uber office there, and they had a gap in their lease. They had to, they were moving restaurants. They were going from one location to another. I don't know the details of why the gap occurred, but because we had such a positive relationship there, and I think I'm speaking for the restaurant. When I say this is what this quote says, and what I think they would say if you asked them directly. Because we had that positive relationship, they said, why don't we continue our restaurant in some temporary space, while we transition into our new front store, or our new storefront, excuse me. So they were actually ahead. They were able to have business continuity. So we set them up. They got their menu set up. I think they rented some commissary kitchen space. They kept their employees, which, if you can imagine a multi-month gap in business, that can create a lot of interruption. And they stayed in business, and they continued to serve the customers that wanted their food, and we were able to provide them a platform and partner with them on that. So I love that story because it shows how technology cannot just be something that one person sells and another person buys, but it actually interviews with a business that's being operated.
So your Ubereats is in 10, 12?
It's in 14 markets.
14 markets. Well, how do you, not specifically where you're headed next, but what are the qualities and things that you look for in markets that you're going to enter? You're obviously in a lot of really large cities and highly populous places. That's going to be one piece of it. But as you see the next, say, 5 years unfolding, if you can, in this regard, do you see the same kind of permutation we have with Uber now, 75% of the country, that kind of thing?
And without giving up too much away, yes, I do. I think it's 14 and expanding. We're going to be launching more markets this quarter and next. It's not a secret that when Uber gets passionate about a business, it invests heavily in it to do it right, to make true change how we can, and to partner with the communities that we're going into. As far as what we look for in a market, I think at Uber we call it the sort of inside-out approach, right? Where we say, what are our core principles, and what's truly important to launching a new market, and then we just don't launch until we get to those things. So some examples would be, can we partner with the restaurants in the city that we're mutually excited to work together? Is there an opportunity to bring the same reliability and consistency and speed that we see speed of delivery that we see in our existing markets? And if the answer is yes, then we'll go ahead and launch. But Gino's East is a good example of sort of deep dish pizza here in Chicago. I'm not a local, so the team here said this is the place that shows local flavor. So whenever we go into a market, if we're representing the flavor of that city and really celebrating that and giving people access where they didn't have access before to all the best things rather than just being physically close to it, that's when we know we're kind of onto something, right? The other thing we do is we'll bring people in from, not only restaurants, but we'll bring people in from the community and have them look at the restaurants that we're launching with and the path that we're going down, and we'll see if they get excited, right? There's a lot of these things I think are often portrayed as rocket science, but the truth is it's just hard work every day, and you want to have a reliable service that has benefits for everybody, and if we get there, we get excited about it and we launch. One thing I will mention about Uber that may or may not be interesting to this group here is, sorry, hopefully we're on time, but may be interesting to this group here is, I just lost my train of thought as I was like thinking about time. It was going to be so awesome too. I'm sorry to do that to everybody. Maybe they'll come back to me.
So, if you think about, you've been, again, I'm big on interviewing young people today. You've only been around doing this for a relatively short period of time, and you've made such enormous impact. It's got to be very gratifying to see what you can do to help communities, to help people, to grow businesses. It's got to be a lot of fun. Is it as much fun as it looks?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, Uber's the company before me. They built a company that was extremely passionate about the fundamentals, and that's continuing through to these new businesses. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work too, right? Like you're doing these things right off the start, and everybody here knows that. Starting at restaurants, it's you're grinding every day and tweaking, trying to find the exact right formula. But once you get it, it's fun to be able to invest in it and do the right thing, right? Not just take advantage of the situation, but do the right thing so that you can have a long-term sustainable business.
I did learn one thing about you as we were talking before we came out here. Jason's a little bit of a restaurateur wannabe.
Okay.
Is that right?
Actually, yes.
You were intrigued with the mystery and the passion and the romance behind the restaurant industry, right?
Yeah. So we were talking backstage, and we had this conversation at Uber a lot, where we kind of feel like we're surrounding them. We're sort of like around the magic, but like the real magic is like the moment of taking raw ingredients, formulating it into something that then people consume, and like it changes their mood, it changes their connection with their city. It's sort of the magic of being a craftsman, right? And so while we build technology, and we're super excited about that, it's just awesome to work with all these extremely passionate people creating different flavors and interesting things. So I do have a little envy. Like there's a part of me that wants to be working in a restaurant.
We have this amazing restaurant show going on.
Yeah, there we go.
That we would love to have you take a spin around here, and we're very grateful to you, Jason, and to Denny, and to Kimball for your engagement with us here today. As we leave this event, we'll be inviting you to go upstairs to the show. We all have these ideas, and some of us may think some of the ideas here we've heard today are impossible. Some of us may think our own ideas are impossible to implement, but maybe it's time to rethink how we think. And how do we turn the tables to help ourselves in our industry? It's hard work, as Jason was just saying, and we have to be engaged, not just with our employees and our customers, although they're critical, but we have to engage on a broader scale. I think that's part of what we've heard today. As you think about your own profit per employee numbers and how that impacts the choices that you can make, think about how few policymakers really understand your business. It is so critical that you engage with your elected officials, with your state, local, and federal legislators. Invite them to your restaurants. We are ready at the National Restaurant Association to help you do that. We have a restaurant roundtable that will help you set up with your lawmakers. We'll support you in every way you can to tell the story of our industry and support your own engagement and advocacy. We know that your main focus is on running your restaurants and staying engaged with your businesses, and that's why we have been holding this show for 97 years this year. We bring together thousands of new ideas, tens of thousands of people, new thinkers, to get your creative engines revved up again, and they're all right upstairs. So much is possible, and you can turn the tables yourselves. Your great idea can be real, and your impossible dream can be achieved. Now, it's up to you. Thank you, and thank you all for being here with us.